fascism was raising its head again on the streets of London.
The war ended for us. We were there to destroy fascists and Nazis, and they were still there.
We saw it as part of a war in which 6 million Jews had got killed, and these were the same sort of people.
What we did by stopping these people was change the tide of history.
We were the first group of Jewish people who stood up and fought, basically. The others like to bury their head in the sand and think it'll go away, but these things never go away.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, I lived in Amherst Road, and it was in the heartland of the black shirt operations before the war.
Where I lived in the East End was a few hundred yards away from Mosley's headquarters in Roman Road. You see.
Victoria Park Square was very famous for the fascist meetings, which was virtually a stone's throw from where I was living.
We would not wander into Bethnal Green, and we would not wander into South Wapping, that area.
If I turned left, I had to go to a fascist meeting.
We would not go past Stepney Green Station because we were going into their territory.
And if I turned right, there was often a fascist meeting about 100 yards down outside the Mitford Tavern public house.
Very often marching round the streets, we've got to get rid of the Yids, we've got to get rid of the Yids.
We were dead scared. We were afraid because we would get beaten up. Pure, not for doing anything and not for saying anything, but looking Jewish.
It was quite frightening, actually, as a child.
As I went in, there was a young, I think she was a young girl, I don't know. And I got talking to her, then we went inside, then I saw a number of bodies on the ground. And I said, why are they sleeping there, going to the huts? She looked at me as if I was mad. She said, they're dead. That's the first time I saw a group of dead people. And then she took me forward. Then I saw nearly as high as this ceiling, about 24,000 bodies, all dead. And then I spoke to a number of women. One lady was with her back to me, and all the others went like this, as if indicating that she was semi-mad. Then I learned the terrible story. Her child was thrown up into the air. And shot. They tried to find out how many bullets went into the kid's body. Then that got my temper up, and what could I do? We took an oath there as I was burying the people. I said, never again, never, never again.
We were young men and women that have just come back from a frightful war and feel that to find fascism rearing its head in our home country needed drastic measures.
If the Nazis had won the war, the English fascists would have been the people knocking on our door and taking us away.
And you come across a fascist speaking, anti-democratic, pro-German, certainly anti-Semitic. Not enough Jews are killed in Belgium, things like that.
Jeffrey Ham was a dead-faced, wicked anti-Semite, a big blonde guy with blue eyes, and also not a bad speaker, but a bastard who you could hate, and you did hate.
Mosley gets up and starts talking about the Jews were only in the black market or in the pioneer corps, and they did nothing in the war and everything, and this got up our nose, and this we decided we've got to do something about it, and we did.
Adjacent to Jack Straw's castle, we saw this fascist meeting. There was a big Union Jack waving in the wind, British League of Ex-Servicemen and Women, a fellow who had been interned for 2 years, or 3 years, Geoffrey Ham, one of Mosley's top men, was on the platform preaching. And there were 4 young fascist thugs on the platform, protecting the platform. And Len walked up to these 2 fascists on the end, selling the magazine Britain Awake. He said, "I can't stand the bleeding Jews myself, I'm going to buy one of those magazines." As they limped forward, his hands came up like that, and he banged their heads together. They went down poleaxed. I saw the platform flying backwards, and Geoffrey Ham falling on the ground, and Jerry was knocking hell out of them. We went back to Maccabi House. We told the fellows what had happened. We were on a high. They listened to us, and they said, "Right, well, no one's going to stop them. We'll bloody well stop them." Half a dozen of us went to see members of Parliament, and the MPs were very sympathetic towards us. And they did ask questions of Tutor E, the Home Secretary, and there was a Labour government in power at the time, and yet the government did nothing. I joined Ajax at the time, and Associated Jewish Servicemen, and they were putting up platforms. They had some very, very good speakers, and these speakers went out castigating the government for permitting the fascists this outrageous obscenity to occur on London streets.
There was shouts from Ajax members to close down the meetings and this sort of thing, but nothing at all like the group did to stop these meetings.
The Ajax and the other one called Board of Deputies. And their attitude was, still ahead, turn the other cheek.
And I came to the conclusion that with all the best speakers in the world, they will not convert one fascist from being anti-Semitic. Wasn't working.
We had a meeting at Maccabi to discuss the next step forward.
And we decided to form an organisation and launch an non-stop attack on the emergent fascist party. Our aim and object was to expose it and then to destroy it.
We were the first group of Jewish people who stood up and fought, basically.
I felt at that particular time I started it because I thought this was a job that had to be done, because I knew that before the war there'd been the marches in the East End and people had to stand up and be counted, and I also felt strongly that if the Jews in Germany had stood up for themselves earlier on, they would have been respected and they wouldn't have been annihilated as they were.
We formed the 43 group, and within 2 months we had enrolled 300 ex-servicemen.
The tower of strength there was Jerry Flamberg, because he showed such fine leadership. You could see the membership feel 10 foot tall with Jerry when he gave them the pressure of the necessity of having to come out on the streets. People who may have been on the fringe of saying, well, should I or shouldn't I? After they'd listened to Jerry, no, I've got to. At every meeting, officially, the police were approached and asked to close down the meeting as a disturbance of the peace. This we knew would be a pat reply: freedom of speech, they cannot close the meeting. And then the call went up.
Up with Mosley, kill all the Yids! And this was provocation. And we used to go towards the platform.
Get as near as possible, as long as the police presence wasn't too strong, and sort of upset the platform, or heckle, or really disrupt the meeting in every possible way. That was how we worked. We went to destroy the meeting and upset the meeting, give them a chance to spout their filth. You know.
And we never walked towards fascists. We ran at them.
Hit them hard wherever we could, really hit them hard, and cause as much disruption amongst them as possible.
This is the one. There were 12 of us here.
I won't mention their names. One of them knocked on the door and said he wants to speak.
We said, we come here, we understand that you're going to be attacked tonight, and we've got a call, and we come to protect you. You open the door, the police come in. We said, thank you very much. And up we went.
And this fellow walked upstairs, and Geoffrey Ham had the shock of his life.
He said, hello, Geoffrey, I've come to give you a present.
He gave him a good hiding.
About half a dozen times, nutted him, boom, boom.
Smashed up the place.
All these files in there. I opened it up and I stuffed my pockets with all of them.
And left. The police were informed and went to arrest the said party, but he had a wonderful alibi. He was with all of us at the Bray House in the West End of London. So nothing ever happened. But he did get a bloody good idea.
There was no question in my personal mind that the East End group stood head and shoulders above the...
The East End group were the ones that really did the dirty work. The guy who led us was a guy called Jackie Marovich. He was a very tough boy. He was 6'3" and he was a boxer. A very tough group of boys, very tough. We were all quite tall and we were all quite intimidating.
They certainly went in where angels fear to tread.
We broke up their meetings, stopped their newspaper sellers by getting them off the streets, and we had people inside the fascist organisation giving us completely updated information on what they were doing.
Really what the plans were of the various organisations, whether it be Mosley's intentions when he was appearing, where he was appearing. Very extensive lists and information from what was really the union. A lot of the people who were actually supporting Geoffrey Ham and Burgess, etc., they joined a book club and they really had no idea of what it was that they were supporting. And they were very surprised when they learned. I think that's probably how we found quite a few of our insiders, that they were very dismayed when they found out who they had joined up with.
We had a very, very good intelligence. Very good, yeah. We were fed... I once attacked a fascist paper seller, unfortunately for him, and he was one of ours. And I met him some months later. I had to apologise to him, poor guy.
The place we got our own back on them was in Brighton.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We all went down to Brighton, and there was supposed to have been a very big fascist march led by Geoffrey Ham and everything. And when we got there was a policeman.
That was a fantastic day, that was. We really routed them, because they didn't have the police protection.
The police in Brighton were not sympathetic to the fascists. And when they were asked to provide protection, they sent one or two policemen.
They stayed away more.
All they sent along.
And we turned out in force that day. I must say, the boys really excelled themselves.
We'd wait for them to assembly in this particular square, surrounded by houses.
The level.
Was it called the level? Anyway, they all turned up with their lorries, marching in, and they proceeded to try and set up camp. Only we were all round. And as they came in, we had a load of bricks, and we first of all started with slung a load of bricks at them, and then we went in and gave them a bloody good hiding.
The fighting went on all afternoon, all over Brighton.
Yes, it was. It went on for quite hours. It was a running battle.
So we had this opportunity to attack them without them having police protection.
If we were winning a bit of a scrap, the policeman would walk away. If someone was having a bit of bother, the police would intervene.
And half of them finished up in hospital in Brighton, and that's the truth.
We virtually destroyed them that day. I don't think they ever recovered from that.
I thought their number started to dwindle. And and we even had certainly one, maybe two people who changed sides.
We saw the whole of the Mosley movement waning.
They knew, the fascists, that the group were going to attend. There was a lot of discussion going on.
We heard from our inside informers that the subject that came up most at fascist meetings was not Ajax, not the Board of Deputies, not anything else, but the 43 group.
Less meetings. Ridley Road, they stopped having meetings in Ridley Road, and generally speaking, they just seemed to fade away. You know?
I thought we won when Mosley done a memorial hall, and was never to appear again in public as a public speaker.
He was really terrified because he couldn't go anywhere and feel that he was safe.
Because in the end, he had to give up. Mosley in 1950, he gave up. Because we exposed him.
The fascists were victims of their own propaganda. For years they'd created this image of the Jew as the little shopkeeper, the little tailor. They hadn't reckoned on the Jewish ex-servicemen, people like Jerry Flamberg and Len Sherman and people like that. They didn't recognise these people as Jews, and suddenly they came up against these guys. They never knew what happened. They couldn't change their point of focus. These weren't the Jews they had in mind, and they didn't expect to be suddenly turned around and punched in the face.
We exposed fascism, we enlightened Jewish people and the non-Jewish people that fascism exists, and on completion of our duty in that respect, we dissolved the organisation. People had a great high regard for each other, knowing what they had in common. And that was important to us because we knew we had to rely on each other.
We were a group of people, boys and girls, who were not going to be put upon. That was very rewarding in its way, very rewarding.
There's a bond there. When we were wanted and called, were there. Backs against the wall, they were there. You've got to have a great respect for that.
And also the fact that we found quite a number of the Jewish community were very proud and pleased with what we were doing.
Fighting for a purpose, expressing ourselves for the well-being, for our future, our children, grandchildren, future generations.
By and large, what we did was very worth.
It changed me as a person. It made me realise that I am what I am. Very proud to be a Jew. And not sorry for what I did. On the contrary, I'm very pleased with what I did. Because somebody had to do it.
The 43 group, without any question of doubt, merely responsible for the destruction of Mosley and his group.
Looking back, I mean, there can never be another organisation like it. We had loads of energy in the group and loads of initiative and loads of ideas. And looking back, the fascists didn't stand a chance.